Dear followers, friends, viewers, finally, after 30 years, now I know who killed Kurt Cobain, and I will reveal you every detail. Now the puzzle is closed. I'm not kidding, and I have the concrete proofs. Is there anything paranormal? Just the beginning, when 1 month ago I dreamt of Kurt Cobain asking me justice and talking to me, nothing else paranormal. I want to stress that I haven't been paid to shoot this documentary. I haven't been paid to study this investigation material. I did it completely for free, so of course I haven't done it for money. I want to thank from the bottom of my heart people who have been working for 30 years to give justice to Kurt Cobain, publishing true documents like Richard Lee, journalist, investigator, Jan Halperin, author, journalist, investigator, filmmaker, best-selling writer, the investigators Tom Grant, Max Wallace, and many others who published true documents, videos, secret audio recordings, and so helped me to close the puzzle. So it starts immediately with a concrete proof for people who haven't watched the second part of my documentary dedicated to the murder of Kurt Cobain. I'm referring to the second part, and this is the final part. Finally, you will know who killed Kurt Cobain. I'm not kidding. So, for people who still don't want to believe that Kurt wanted to divorce from Courtney Love, I have the concrete proof in this secret phone call of Courtney Love. She already knew that Kurt wanted a divorce at least on March 1994, and Kurt has been found dead on April the 8th, 1994. She had denied this particular, and it wasn't an insignificant detail, but a basic detail, for years. Why denying? So I make you immediately hear.
This is a paper, and it says there's three, or there were three or four. I think there were four.
Why would somebody tell you to get rid of that?
Because it wasn't really nice. They talked about getting a divorce.
So, a basic step to understand better that Kurt Cobain didn't kill himself at all was the documentary Kurt and Courtney, released in 1998. And I want to make you see something really basic to understand then the investigation. I start. I immediately start with the file I want to show you. I go.
At 8:40 a.m. on April the 8th, 1994, Kurt Cobain's body was found. He had been killed by a shotgun wound to the head. The verdict was suicide. According to the police report,
Immediately when the body of Kurt Cobain was found dead, immediately suicide. Oh, have you heard what Kurt stated in his last interview a few months before he was found dead? How could investigation think about that he wanted to kill himself? Of course, in the previous parts of my documentary, I talk you about the cover-up of his murder, because Kurt Cobain has been killed 1,000%. And now I know who the killer. No, I want to be more specific. Who the killers are. And now I make you see what Hank Harrison is Courtney Love's father, stated about Kurt and Courtney. He stated that when Kurt was found dead, he didn't believe in suicide at all. In fact, he had written 2 books after the death of Kurt. 2 books. The first one, Kurt Cobain Beyond Nirvana, and the second one, very, very important, Who Killed Kurt Cobain. And now I make you see what Hank Harrison tells you about his daughter. It's incredible. This is what Hank Harrison states.
your book, your other book, which I think is Who Killed Kurt Cobain?
Yeah.
You say something of work for Courtney.
And now let's talk about El Duce, because El Duce was the frontman of the shock rock band The Mentors. He wasn't a good person, and he immediately stated that Courtney hired him for killing Kurt Cobain for $50,000. So El Duce, of course, wasn't a splendid person. Look at this picture. He was perverted, as himself stated. He had sex on stage, obscene acts on stage. He was a Satanist, and really not a person to admire. But El Duce is the key to understand the whole puzzle. Who killed Kurt Cobain? Remember, if there wasn't El Duce and his statement, we couldn't reach the whole truth. So now I explain you better. As you see, he was a Satanist, a controversial person and singer, but listen what he stated.
Dog, angry dog.
Perverted. He's just a perverted.
Yeah, a warped.
And he said that he was a perverted.
So, but you did some deal with Courtney, right?
Yeah. She offered me 50 grand to whack Kurt Cobain. Yeah, I was telling you this.
She what?
Funny.
And listen that El Duce was saying the truth because
El Duce had passed a polygraph test, even though his main witness had nodded off before its completion.
have you just heard? Because after three years after the murder of Kurt Cobain, we don't know why, but El Duce went to the police to confess, and he passed the polygraph, and it means, because in the United States, as I told you, is a proof, so El Duce said the truth.
Duce had been killed by a train near where he lived. We learned his real name was Eldon Hoke. He was 35 years old. The official version was accidental death, but people had other ideas. We too had also become part of the conspiracy theory.
Of course, that El Duce has been another victim, and then I will tell you also the identity of the murderer of El Duce. What you have just seen, of course, that blonde girl is an actress who played the role of Courtney Love in the docu-film Soaked in Bleach of 2015 by Benjamin Statler. Instead, the man you see is the real Tom Grant. As I told you before, Courtney Love hired him to track Kurt Cobain, according to her, a missing person, since when he left rehab, and it wasn't so. So I want to stress that the woman you saw wasn't Courtney Love, but the actress who played the role of Courtney Love. But why did I make you watch this short clip? Because in this documentary, they report what I have just made you hear in the beginning of this documentary. The secret phone call in which Courtney Love already knew that Kurt wanted to divorce at least on March 1994, and Kurt Cobain has been murdered on April 1994. Official date the 5th of April 1994, but maybe later. 7th, on 7th, early 8th, April 1994, okay. And the unfaithfulness of Courtney Love was completely for sure. Not only because I talk about all the viewers who haven't watched my previous parts of this documentary dedicated to the murder of Kurt Cobain. Courtney had a secret lover, Dr. Nicholas Hartshorn, who was the doctor who performed the autopsy on Kurt Cobain's corpse, and then he admitted to have had a conflict of interest in performing the autopsy on Kurt Cobain because he had an affair with Courtney Love. But maybe Dr. Nicholas Hartshorn didn't know that Courtney Love had other secret lovers for sure. For example, when she is crying because she received the note in Rome, March 1994, you must know that in the beginning, Courtney Love wasn't in Rome, but she was in London with one of her secret lovers. I'm talking about Billy Corgan, the frontman of Smashing Pumpkins. And then she also had other secret lovers, a musician from a band called Lemon something. So she had more than a lover. So she was completely, in only 2 years of marriage, she had been completely unfaithful to Kurt. And this was serious. Listen what Dylan Carlson, Kurt Cobain's best friend, reveals to Tom Grant. I go.
Are you suicidal?
No, not at all. He's been under a lot of pressure, but he's been handling things pretty good. I mean, I know he and Courtney have been having a lot of troubles lately, but I don't know why Kurt married her.
They don't get along. They don't agree about it.
And this is a question many fans wonder why Kurt married Courtney Love. Of course, he was really, truly, madly, sincerely in love with her when he discovered the woman she was. He wanted a divorce. I go on with other important things to hear. Listen to what he reveals.
Him trying to kill himself?
No, it was an accident. Everybody knows that.
I asked him several times about whether...
Kurt didn't attempt suicide in Rome. It was fake news spread by Courtney Love saying Kurt attempted suicide, I saved him, and she referred to previous attempts of suicide. Never happened because Kurt never attempted to kill himself once. This is the truth. And now I make you see what Max Wallace, the investigator, tells you. Everybody, people very close to Kurt, knew that he didn't want to kill himself. Okay.
There was a mythology that, oh yeah, everybody knew he was suicidal. That was just obvious. It was no big surprise when he finally killed himself. And then you go to those closest to him, the people who knew best, and none of them believed he was suicidal.
I've never heard Kurt talk about suicide or anything. He's always seemed happy around me, quiet, shy, but definitely happy. He never hinted to me that he was depressed.
His music and his lyrics.
So that was one of Kurt's best friends, Mitch. He was happy lately. He never mentioned suicide at all, because it was the truth. So, have you heard? That has been that man, a very enormous temper, who had been a police chief, also expressed his perplexities about the way of working of some policemen and so on.
With one of his own detectives to read.
So even this important character, Cameron, retired from the police. Otherwise, the chief tells you, I would have fired him. Now I want to show you something concrete that Kurt didn't attempt suicide in Rome. No, I have the proof. Look at this.
Both.
Have you heard? Courtney, when it happened this accident, because Kurt was in a hotel room and he exaggerated with champagne, but not with pills. Instead, Courtney Love starts to spread this fake news to the medias. Kurt attempted suicide again. He never attempted suicide. And we have the scientific proof, because the Italian doctor Osvaldo Galletta was the doctor who had in Rome Kurt as patient, told that Courtney Love was lying 1000%, because it was false that Kurt swallowed 60 pills and mixing with champagne, but there were only only two pills in his stomach, and much champagne. Okay, Kurt exaggerated, but he didn't want to kill himself at all. In fact, when he immediately hears the wife from whom he wanted to divorce going to the press stating Kurt attempted suicide and I saved him, immediately Kurt didn't want to see Courtney anymore. In fact, he returned to the United States, but not in the house in which they lived together. So Kurt doesn't return at the home of his wife, but look what he does. He decides to buy a shotgun, but not of course to kill himself, but to protect himself. I want to remind you that his body was found on April the 8th, 1994, and he was waiting for the electrician to install a new powerful security system. So a man who wants to protect himself doesn't want to kill himself, of course. So on the 30th of March 1994, Kurt Cobain decides to buy a shotgun. I make you read better. A Remington shotgun. And the shotgun was registered on Dylan Carson's name because Kurt couldn't have a firearm. Then Kurt takes a flight to Los Angeles and he goes to Exodus Rehab Center to detoxify in Los Angeles and look at these lovely pictures. This is the last photo of Kurt Cobain with his beloved daughter Frances Bean, because Jackie Ferry, Frances Bean's nanny, visits Kurt with Frances Bean at the rehab, and I want to make you see how Kurt loved his daughter. This is the last photo. This is the photo of Kurt with Frances Bean, and this photo was snapped on March the 31st, 1994. Do you see how Kurt loved his daughter? He went to rehab also for her. Look at the happiness of Kurt in embracing her daughter and spending all the day with her. Also in rehab in Los Angeles. It's an injustice. Kurt has been killed. When he returns in Seattle on April the 2nd, 1994, he decides to go and visit his best friend. At 1:30 a.m. he goes to visit his friend with his girlfriend, and then according to Cali, Kurt visits him and his girlfriend Jessica in Cali's bedroom at Kurt's Lake, Washington. But then, what happened? He greets his friend, and I make you read this. It's very important to understand. Okay, I stop. So, I want you to read better. Allora, so Kurt was seen by Cali for the last time on April the 2nd, Saturday, 1994. And remember that Courtney Love hired Tom Grant, saying that when Kurt left rehab in Los Angeles was a missing person, and he wasn't told because on April the 2nd, 1994, he visited his friend Cali. And Cali stated to have seen for the last time Kurt on April the 2nd, Saturday. And Courtney knew that Kurt had been at Cali's house because what? Phone records show Courtney speaks to Kali eight times on April the 2nd. And the following day, so Kurt wasn't a missing person if the day before was at his friend's house. What she does? Courtney doesn't reveal Kurt was seen when she hires Tom Grant on April the 3rd, 1994. And this was the news in the documentary of 2015, Soaked in Bleach. But I have a surprise for you. I discovered that Kurt, the last time Kurt was seen, wasn't on April the 2nd, but also at dinner time, the 3rd of April 1994, and in the early morning of April the 4th, 1994, seen by a neighbor. And I explain you better because on April the 3rd at dinner, he was with a beautiful, thin woman, and she wasn't Courtney. Finally, we are in front of my personal computer. For all the viewers who haven't watched the penultimate part of this documentary dedicated to the murder of Kurt Cobain, I want to show you briefly where we remained in the penultimate part, and then we go on and you will discover really who killed Kurt Cobain. Don't worry. So, I make you see, of course, now this news is really around the world. But Jan Halperin, the mythical author of the masterpiece Case Closed, The Cobain Murder, the killing and cover-up of Kurt Cobain, released on March 2023, so about 1 year ago, stated per Radio Online other shocking revelations. I immediately make you see that this is a very fresh news, because look, I want you to look at this news has been published in the international news. Look at the date, February the 5th, 2024. So, only 2 months ago. Okay, I immediately make you read. Look. Kurt Cobain's coroner had an affair with rocker's wife, Courtney Love, report. Now that the press knew this, now, I'm sure that in a few time, this is the year Kurt Cobain will have justice. Just 30 years ago, he had been brutally murdered, and it was a premeditated murder. Now, I make you read. Kurt Cobain's autopsy may have been a cover-up. Coroner Dr. Nicholas Hartshorn, who performed the autopsy on the Nirvana frontman, was allegedly having an affair with Courtney Love, per Radar Online. In light of the new leaked, never-before-seen copy of Cobain's alleged autopsy report, best-selling author Ian Halperin, who penned Case Closed, The Cobain Murder, made shocking new claims about Dr. Hartshorn. Halperin alleged via Radar Online that Dr. Hartshorn allegedly boasted of an intimate relationship with Cobain's wife Courtney Love, which he claims compromised the objectivity of the autopsy findings. Halperin has long contested Cobain's death as a suicide, suggesting evidence of foul play in the Cobain murder. The author has allegedly asked Love to take a lie detector test to prove her innocence, which she has always denied. Also, I want to remind you that also last year, Ian Halperin challenged Courtney Love, take a lie detector test to prove your innocence, and I will buy a billboard and put in Times Square in New York stating Courtney Love is innocent, but she has always denied the test of polygraph. As for Dr. Hartshorn, a self-proclaimed Nirvana fan and an admirer of Love, of course, he was one of his secret lovers, reportedly confessed to having a conflict of interest while performing the autopsy, and even went as far as to admit during a 1996 interview that he should have been recused from Cobain's autopsy. And I want to remind you that Dr. Hartshorn was also involved in the horrible crime of desecration of corpse at the funeral home. So, oh my God. And we were here. I want to show you this again, this magnificent, the photo of the magnificent angel Kurt Cobain. Really, really deserves to have justice after 30 years. Really, really lovely. Really, really handsome, pure beauty. And now, I also want to show you that this news is going around the world. So I want to show you also the sun. The Sun, I want to remind you that when the masterpiece book of Ian Halperin, The Killing and the Cover-Up, the Case Closed, The Cobain Murder, The Killing and Cover-Up of Kurt Cobain gave in exclusive his interview to the United States Sun. Look at the sun now. I make you see new photos because now the news is becoming viral. Kurt Cobain. This is for the sun. I want to make you see the sun. Okay. Kurt Cobain. Now Courtney Love. Always beautiful. Of course, aged, but always beautiful. It's not a crime to be beautiful. A crime is what I don't say, Courtney Love. Only the proofs at the end of my documentary will reveal you the names and surnames of the two killers. Now, I can tell you that he wasn't Dr. Nicholas Hartshorn. No, he wasn't. He was involved in the cover-up, in the cover-up, and he wasn't lucid during performing the autopsy because he had this conflict of interest, being maybe the closer lover of Courtney Love, but he wasn't the only one. This was Nicholas Hartshorn, and he admitted to have probably compromised the autopsy on Kurt Cobain already in 1996. And watch the title. Kurt Cobain corner busted. He was intimate with rocker's wife, Courtney Love. So now the news. The news now is around the world. I have been one of the first ones about months ago to have found this news. And now, let's go to something really hot topic. I'm talking about the secret tapes. That for a moment, these secret tapes, these secret recordings, phone calls, had disappeared for a very long time, and now they have been found again. No doubt, these tapes, these secret recordings lead you step by step to the last steps in which I will reveal you who killed Kurt Cobain. I immediately start. Okay. Go. So, Kurt did this statement very few months before being murdered. How could they think that he wanted to kill himself? He was completely in love with his beloved daughter, and it was a clear murder. And now I also want to make you hear this one, because you must know that, as I told you, The suicide note, that now we know that it wasn't a suicide note, because the first part of the note, Kurt never mentioned the word suicide, or sentences like I don't want to live in this cruel world anymore. Not at all. As you heard in this tape, when you have a daughter, a family, everything, the world seems so much better. Life is worth believing. So it was impossible that he wanted to kill himself. In fact, he also went, as I made you see before, to rehab, to detoxify. He prepared, he went to the divorce lawyer, and so on. He wanted a new, powerful, secure system. So he didn't want to kill himself at all, and he was scared that somebody could hurt him and kill him. And he was completely right. So I make you hear what Kurt said, because after this statement that he was a grown-up person, when he tells you 4 years ago I was the classic person who dared to bring a child into this world, in this cruel world, and now that I have a family, I see the world with other eyes. The world seems much better, and it changes the attitude to the world. So Kurt was completely positive, as the friends told you before. He never talked about suicide. He was pretty happy in the last periods. And so Kurt really probably wanted to split Nirvana, because he didn't recognize in those songs. Think about that. He stated in an interview that he was annoyed to sing on stage the mythical Smells Like Teen Spirits, because he didn't recognize himself in those songs anymore. And he couldn't fake with his fans, because he was a very beautiful and honest person. And in this tape, Kurt also tells you that he wasn't able to feel inside even the songs of his last album, In Utero, released in 1993. And listen what he was going to tell you. This is another secret tape of Kurt Cobain. So the suicide note, it wasn't a suicide note, but a goodbye to the spotlight, to the music, for a period that could be longer or shorter, because he wanted to detoxify and also maybe change the kind of music and the lyrics. I make you hear the voice, the tape, because I always speak about concrete proofs. I don't believe in speeches. I believe in concrete proofs, and I have them. So, listen what Kurt immediately. Go! I make you hear Kurt. Okay, let's go.
Death and life and being sick all the time, and I'm just kind of obsessed with it, so I had to get it out of my system. More biographical of the way I felt a few years ago. To tell you the truth, it's not really as personal as a lot of people would like it to be. I actually had some themes on this album that don't have anything to do with my life at all. So, in a way, yeah, for a few songs.
So, you heard, it tells you, some years ago I wrote, I was angry with the world, but now I don't feel my songs anymore, and even in utero I always feel about 3 songs in all the album. So this was Kurt Cobain. And now I make you hear something important. I show you this time something very important about the greenhouse and some curiosities. I go.
Sort of start.
I go immediately. These are the official tapes.
From Lake Washington, next door to Starbucks chairman Howard Schultz, and across the street from a house being constructed by Bill Gates.
It's just weird to think Kurt used to live here, the biggest celebrity
The
he was.
greenhouse built by Bill Gates.
There's a big call box, and I want to point my camera over this, but I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for that. You guys can see. People don't even sit on these benches anymore. There's a guy on that one, but this bench here is, no one sits on it. I'm trying to get through here, but it's so hard to see. I'm trying to see where the greenhouse will be. I'm going to go get another angle, too.
This is the greenhouse.
And there it is right there. You can see the greenhouse pad, the garage still there, the greenhouse where Kurt's body was discovered, and that pad right there. That's where the greenhouse used to sit. That is the house. This is as close as I can get without falling down this thing. Like, this is as high as I can get up to it. But that is where Kurt was found, unfortunately. I'm gonna get some pictures of my camera.
So you have watched the real greenhouse where Kurt was found dead. But think about that this person I'm going to show you was one of the babysitter of Francis Bean Cobain, and he had been the former boyfriend of Courtney Love. So Courtney Love was surrounded by men with laughter. This is I go.
User Michael Callie DeWitt as a full-time nanny for Francis Bean. Leland Cobain claimed during a visit to the house they were both high as a kite, and Francis was right there in the room. Dylan Carlson, Kurt's best friend, admitted to supplying both Kurt and Courtney with heroin behind each other's backs. Kurt was known to sneak off to a motel and do heroin.
So, you must know already, you know, that of course Kurt has been very addicted to heroin. But this was before, because then he wanted to detoxify completely. And now you will discover the last days of Kurt Cobain before being brutally killed, and also that then he was in company of an attractive, thin, mysterious woman. Listen what happened when Kurt left rehab in Los Angeles. I go.
The only occupant of the house at this time was Callie DeWitt, as Courtney was in a rehab clinic in Los Angeles. The next morning, Callie and his girlfriend were in bed when Kurt walked in and sat on the edge of the bed. The two insisted Kurt call Courtney. Callie claims Kurt called Courtney, but she did not pick up. Kurt called a cab at 7 a.m. and left the residence. Courtney Love had hired private investigator Tom Grant to find Kurt. Grant has repeated numerous times over the years that Courtney withheld crucial information from him and blatantly lied about certain things. On April 3rd, 1994, Kurt was seen having dinner with a thin woman at Seattle's Cactus restaurant. Kurt and Courtney owned a house in Carnation, and a neighbor reported fresh tire tracks were seen at the house, suggesting Kurt had stopped by. Sleeping bags and recent cigarette butts with traces of lipstick were found in the Carnation home. Days earlier, Kurt and Dylan Carlson had bought a shotgun and ammunition in Dylan's name, as Kurt was not allowed to own a gun. So this right here is the location of Stan Baker Sports.
So, we don't know who the mysterious, attractive thin woman was. But it's for sure that the last times that Kurt was seen live wasn't on April the 2nd, 1994 from Cali, but on the 3rd of April 1994, he was at the Cactus restaurant at dinner with an attractive woman, and it's 1,000% that then he brought this woman to the Carnation house, because then there have been found recent cigarettes smoked by Kurt Cobain, but also other cigarettes with traces of the mysterious woman's lipstick. Then we don't know if they spent the night together or not, because of course, as I told you, in early morning on April the 4th, the neighbor saw Kurt alone, and he was leaving too for the greenhouse. Listen to what the investigator and also witness stated as soon as he saw, as soon as he entered the greenhouse and saw the lifeless body of Kurt Cobain. It's not normal. This is why it was secret. I go.
Cobain's appearance, as lying on the ground with his hair blown back, with blood coming out of his nose and trauma to his eyes.
They have not released a name pending notification.
This investigator had seen blood flowing from fresh blood flowing from Kurt Cobain's nose. This is a shocking revelation. And I tell you the truth, I think that Kurt had been murdered, if I want to be good, on April the 7th, 1994. Otherwise, he could have been killed few hours before the electrician discovered his corpse. But now I want to make you see the funeral, the memorial for Kurt Cobain, and then look what happened. I immediately go, because Courtney Love reads the cold suicide note, but at a point of the memorial, she says something incredible and unacceptable in a funeral. So I immediately go with a video of the memorial, and I go. Okay, let's go.
Courtney visited the funeral home where Kurt's body was. Chris Novoselic walked out of the viewing room, sobbing. Kurt was laid out in a suit, with his eyes sewn shut. Courtney stroked Kurt's face before cutting off a strand of his hair. She then climbed on top of his body and repeatedly cried, "Why?" On April 10th, 1994, 70 people, including members of Kurt's family, attended a private memorial service at a Seattle church. Chris Novoselic delivered a eulogy for those in attendance. Courtney Love read Kurt's final letter, which was piped in through speakers at his public memorial.
You have to know. It's more like a letter to the editor. I don't know what happened. I mean, it was kind of...
And now, until here, Courtney was very okay when she saw Kurt Cobain's body at the funeral home. I really cried for her. But then what happens during the memorial? Okay, I go.
I think they need to read this, considering that it's addressed to most of you. He's such an asshole. I want you all to say ass really loud. This note should be pretty easy to understand. All the wordings for the...
What the hell? She dared to call during the memorial ceremony for Kurt to say he was an asshole. But was she kidding? Here we are with El Duce confession. Are you ready to discover who was the material killer? Okay, I go.
Yeah. She offered me 50 grand to whack Kurt Cobain. Yeah, I was telling you this. She what? 50 grand to whack Kurt Cobain.
And that's a fact.
Courtney Love pulls up in a limo and says, El Duce, listen, I need you to do a big favor for me. I actually know the actual killer that killed Kurt Cobain. His name's Alan Wrench.
8 days before, I want to read for people and watch what happened. 8 days after this interview was taped, Eldon Oak, El Duce, was his real name, was found decapitated in a train yard after reportedly being struck by a train traveling 60 mph. And now I will reveal you that he was seen a few minutes before being decapitated and thrown down a train with Allen Wrench. Allen Wrench, I can tell you, his real name is Alan Wrench. And before becoming the star, the frontman of this extreme tarnished band called Kill Allen Wrench, he was a plumber. And now I make you see more. Don't worry, I make you see. So El Duce was a collateral victim too, because he went to the police confessing that Courtney Love hired him to kill Kurt Cobain, as I made you see in the beginning of this documentary, to kill Kurt Cobain for $50,000 and to make him look like a suicide. In fact, she told him to shoot at his, excuse me, these were the words, fucking head. Then El Duce says, Allen, I will let the FBI catch him, and FBI didn't do much. Then he goes to the BBC revealing, listen, nobody believes me, even if El Duce passed the lie detector test. So he was saying the truth. So he goes to the BBC, he reveals the name of the killer, because when he gave up on killing Kurt, suggested Courtney, Allen Wrench will kill you, Kurt, for sure. And then about when he went to the BBC 2 days after, he had been decapitated, thrown up a train, and then journalists, it was an accident. No, it was another murder. Also El Duce had been murdered. Hey, when El Duce said the name of the killer of Kurt Cobain, read these official documents. After the death of Kurt Cobain, Allen Wrench bought a house, a sports car, and a new truck. Wrench has been asked about this in the past, and he's claimed that he is guilty of killing Kurt Cobain. He admitted. In fact, he also wrote a song titled I Killed Kurt Cobain. And I can then, of course, he retired his statements. El Duce went to the police department to confess that Courtney Love hired him to kill Kurt Cobain, making it looking like a suicide. Then El Duce, maybe because he hadn't the stomach to kill Kurt Cobain, or maybe because he was so much excited for his upcoming tour, gave this money back to Courtney Love, saying, I can't do it, but I suggest you a dude who will kill your husband 8,000%, and that person is Allen Ranch. And he stated this. El Duce, I want to remind you, took a lie detector test and he passed. So I think that this is another proof that he was saying the truth. And now I'm going to show you much, much worse. I think, in my humble opinion, that many investigators, journalists, underestimated him, saying that Allen is a big liar, a braggart. But I want to remind you that also big liars, braggarts can be pitiless killers. So I decided to do a personal research, and I found out other concrete proofs. After El Duce, and also when he went to the BBC, we have his secret tape that I have just made you hear, and he says the name of the killer of Kurt Cobain is Allen Ranch. So El Duce went everywhere to say this, and then he has been decapitated and thrown down a train. It was a murder. I want to go directly to the concrete proofs. I don't want to waste your time more. And then making this research on Allen Ranch, I found out an anonymous letter. Of course, you can tell me, anonymous letters can be taken for sure, but I will tell you more. Now I show you the angelic dude, Allen Ranch. How could I suspect that such an angelic dude could be a pitiless murderer? This is Allen Ranch, frontman of the band Kill Allen Ranch. He also did a song, I Killed Kurt Cobain. He was an extremely satanist, extremely satanist, and more dangerous than what all the people, investigators, underestimated him. Then I make you see another splendid photos of this angel. How could he kill Kurt Cobain? He was so angelic. Look at this other photo. Excuse me. It's a problem of lights, but I make you see another photo, too much beautiful. Oh, Allen Ranch, he was an angel, don't you see? And also when he confessed, I killed Kurt Cobain, and I did it for... Look. Look. I killed Kurt Cobain for $50,000. Huh? And then other beautiful photos of this angel, like this one. Oh, he was so innocent, so angelic. How could it be a killer? And now, I immediately go to show you what I found. Talking about the anonymous letter. As I told you, an anonymous letter can be taken for a proof. But what hits me very much is that in this anonymous letter, anonymous article, it's evident that this witness was afraid he was really afraid and he was scared to be killed being a witness. And he says some particulars that then I found the confirmation on a magazine newspapers by an American producer. So with name, surname, and it says in this newspaper similar statements as this anonymous letter told you. I immediately go to this letter, immediately. Otherwise, I wouldn't show you this letter if I wasn't. I read some details that only a real witness could know. And then I found the confirmation with name, surname of a very famous American producer, manager, and so on. I immediately go. Alan Ranch, real name, Alan Ranch, and in the beginning he was a plumber. But not only, I show you. I want to show you the anonymous. Here we are. Anonymous letter with details that only a real witness could know. And then I had the confirmation. Okay? I immediately go and read for people. Okay. I find this letter. I want to show you the letter. I want to be okay. I want to show you in a knitted way the letter. Okay. This is written information courtesy of about Kill Allen Ranch, and I want you to read it in the more clear way. It's so. Okay, I read you the letter open. Okay, I want to show you the letter and I want to show you the letter and the article. Okay, this is the article and the complete and the complete article by this anonymous, And then I found similar statements, so I don't know if is the same man. Then he went to a very famous magazine newspaper. And so I read you. Okay. I have friends that know Allen Ranch was hired by Courtney Love to kill Kurt Cobain. Allen Ranch was even named by El Duce mentors as the killer. Of course, El Duce. El Duce. And the true story of the Kurt Cobain murder and the Courtney Love El Duce Allen Ranch connection. And now I read you. Okay. I go. El Duce connected Courtney Love with the assassin. Okay, I go. To make you read better. Okay. Towards the end of his life, El Duce, lead singer of the punk rock group The Mentors, was a Riverside local. He would often be seen at local shows, bars, and various places. He was a person you could always just walk up and talk to. El Duce was definitely a punk rock star of the people. The person Duce was always with was another punk rock personality in his own right. Allen Ranch was known for other reasons. His musical background was from an old band that rocked Road War, which had some members of White Flag and Christian Death. Mr. Ranch was also known for random violence. Like El Duce, Ranch himself was always drunk, and when provoked or challenged, reacted with instant violence. He was not a nice guy. I met El Duce at a local Riverside bar called the 60 Club. It would be 660 Club in 1998. It's not open anymore. I had seen Duce around for many years and had been a fan of his band. I bought him a few drinks and he told me he was leaving the next day to tour with his band. A month later, I saw him there again. He was drinking and seemed totally drunk. Everyone knew about his involvement with the whole Kurt Cobain, Courtney Love thing, and he was about to tell me something he hadn't told anyone before. So now I immediately make you see photos. Okay, Courtney Love, Allen Ranch without makeup, of course. For the shows he had that satanic look and horns, but in real life he looked like a normal man and Kurt Cobain. And now I make you read more. I immediately go. So, everyone knows about how Courtney Love offered El Duce 50,000 to kill her husband Kurt Cobain. But that wasn't the whole story. The truth of the matter is El Duce didn't have the stomach to kill someone, but he knew someone that did. That's when Alan Ranch comes into this picture. The mentors were going on tour, so that gave Duce a good excuse to back out of the deal. So what he did was put Courtney Love in contact with Mr. Ranch. Alan Ranch has never admitted to El Duce or anyone else about killing Kurt Cobain. And it's not completely the truth, because in the beginning he was a braggart. I killed Kurt Cobain for $50,000 and so on. But El Duce was 1,000% sure that that's what happened. Alan Ranch before was always poor. He was a drunk guy who was always broke. Then, all of a sudden, I heard that he bought a house, a new truck, and a 70s Corvette. He had a lot of money to fast. I think he got the money from Courtney Love for killing Kurt Cobain. Ranch is also a gun nut. I know people that have hung out with him, and they told me he carries a 44 Magnum handgun wherever he goes. I even seen a fight he was in at River Ride bar called Lie Morix. Ranch got in a fight with a guy that was about 6 feet 4 inches tall. The guy tried to punch Ranch but missed. Then Ranch did some kind of judo throw, and while they were rolling around on the ground, Ranch started choking the guy, and the guy went unconscious. We all thought the guy was dead. Ranch left, and then the guy woke up. He didn't even know where he was at. 2 nights before he died, I saw El Duce at the bar. He was really depressed, scared, and panic-eyed. Duce had told me about an interview he had just done with the BBC about the Kurt Cobain murder. Like always, El Duce was drunk during the interview. He slipped and mentioned that he knew who the real killer was. And then he named Alan Ranch. I know a guy who was watching the interview as it was being filmed. That person told Ranch that El Duce had named him as Cobain's killer. The next thing I know, El Duce is dead, and he was with Alan Ranch up until the last minutes of his life. I recently talked to a guy who was living with El Duce at the time. He told me the night El Duce died, Alan Ranch had come over to their house. all pissed off and looking for Duce. He said as soon as he saw Duce, he that person, he told me the night Duce had died, Allen Ranch had come over to their house, all pissed off and looking for Duce. He said as soon as he saw Duce, he dragged him outside. The ranch began yelling and pushing El Duce, and then they left. The next thing the guy heard was that El Duce was dead, hit by a train 10 minutes after he had left the house with Ranch. Oh my God. From all the information I've gotten from people I know, I'm totally convinced Allen Ranch killed Kurt Cobain for Courtney Love. He got a lot of money for doing it. And after El Duce exposed Ranch as Cobain's killer, Ranch also killed El Duce. Please understand why I don't mention my name, but I had to get this off my chest. This is what the anonymous letter says. So I started to do this research by myself because too many particulars, also the fight and so many particulars, and then finally I found this. I don't know if in the United States know about this American record producer who went to the Sun, United Kingdom, giving this exclusive interview. I immediately make you see that the date and everything. Don't worry. So, the Sun, United Kingdom edition, and this man put his face and his name. Look. I immediately can tell you that I don't know if the person, the man who wrote the anonymous letter and article is the same then he went to the United Kingdom Sun. But there are very, very similar details, and this is not anonymous at all. Read. Exclusive. It was not suicide. Record producer makes bizarre claims Kurt Cobain was murdered, and how shock rocker El Duce was paid $50,000 to kill Nirvana star. Look at the date. I make you see. Okay, the date is important. On July the 3rd, 2019. Then I want to remind you that COVID pandemic happened all over the world. So this news was silenced. But now, not anymore. I want to thank Jan Halperin, his latest statements, shocking statements on February on February 2024, and also Richard Lee and many, many others. Now it's the time, exactly 30 years from the murder of Kurt Cobain. And now it's the time to give him justice. I immediately make you read the article. A record label manager has bizarrely claimed Kurt Cobain was murdered and revealed how a rocker named El Duce told him he'd been paid $50,000 to kill the star and show him wads of cash. And now the name. David Portnow, who runs Seattle-based Pig Records, claims he was stunned when El Duce, real name Eldon Waynoak, showed him a bag full of cash about 8 months before the Nirvana singer's April the 5th, 1994 death. And the photo of El Duce. Okay, he wasn't a good person, but thanks to him now we are at a twist, because Kurt Cobain was murdered, and this twist is thanks for El Duce, who revealed everything already in 1997 at the police department, passing the lie detector test, the test of polygraph. So, and he deserves justice because he has been murdered too. I make you read. Eldon Waynoak, nicknamed El Duce, was the lead singer of the shock rock band The Mentors. Portnow says El Duce, who was the frontman for rap rock The Mentors, told him he was given the money to kill Cobain, but at that time he wasn't sure whether to believe the wild claim. Then, when he saw El Duce make similar claims in Nick Broomfield's 1998 documentary Kurt and Courtney, he started to research Cobain's death. Police have officially ruled the rocker's untimely death as a suicide. Portnow, who knew Cobain and tried to sign Nirvana earlier in their career, now firmly believes the grunge legend didn't take his own life, but was actually murdered, and has called for the case to be reopened. So Portnow went to the Sun, United Kingdom, to urge the American police to reopen the case and to give justice to Kurt Cobain. At the time I had, Portnow reveals, at the time I had both The Mentors and El Duce's solo record on my label, then called Everett Records, and whenever El Duce would come to Seattle, I would drive him around and try to get him in a recording studio, Portnow told Sun Online. I want to show you this amazing photo of Kurt Cobain brutally murdered exactly 30 years ago. It's time to give him justice. So amazing. One of the greatest ones ever, and also very, very handsome. And this is David Portnow, who puts his face. So, it's not anonymous. He went and gave his exclusive interview to the Sun United Kingdom on July the 3rd, 2019. As you see, the label at the beginning was called Big Benis. This is David Portnow. Thank you for your courage. Dave Portnow. Picture left believes Cobain was murdered. And then the record by Il Duce. Of course, the imaging talks by itself. Il Duce wasn't a good person, but he had a kind of conscience, because he went to the police to say the truth. So, he must have justice too. This time, about 8 months before this is always the interview by Dave Portnow. This time, about 8 months before Kurt's death, he showed me he had $5,000 in cash. I didn't count it, but it looked a lot of money, and he told me it was to kill Kurt Cobain. He didn't say where the money was from, and it was very unusual for him to have any money at all. He didn't live in reality, but he wasn't joking about it. I just assumed it was untrue until I saw that Kurt and Courtney movie and he mentioned it again. Today, I definitely believe someone paid Il Duce to kill Kurt Cobain. And then, other shocking revelation. Portnow says he took Il Duce on a shopping spree where he spent the money on 15 pairs of troll slippers, 5 bottles of bourbon, some cured meat, and camping equipment. He made decent money, but he was an alcoholic and a drug addict, and he was pretty much homeless, unless he was couch surfing, Portnow revealed. In Seattle, I would drop him off at his mother's, but if he was drunk, she wouldn't take him. So, there's the Aurora Bridge in Seattle, and underneath it is a giant statue of a troll, and I used to drop him off there, and he'd slept behind it. Look at this magnificent picture. Kurt Cobain with Courtney Love and the beloved daughter Frances Bean. It's sad how it ended up. Really, really. So, another photo of El Duce. Of course, I wouldn't feel comfortable with a dude like this. In fact, according to the El Duce, who passed the lie detector test, Courtney Love first hired him to kill Kurt Cobain. So he wasn't a beautiful person. But then, let's read. Okay. I go. El Duce. Portnow states, I would never let him sleep at my house. Many bands slept at my house, but not El Duce. The day he showed me the money, I spent all day shopping with him. He bought a new duffel bag. We went to a hardware store called Chubby and Tubby because he needed camping supplies. They had these slippers with trolls, you know, the plastic trolls with the long hair, and he bought 15 pairs of those in his size. Then we went to Hickory Farms and he bought a bunch of salami and pepperoni, and he bought a train ticket back to Los Angeles. And of course, we stopped by the liquor store where he bought 5 bottles of wild turkey, which wasn't even that much for him. And now I want to show you, this is absolutely my favorite photo of Kurt Cobain. Look at this photo. He was an angel. He was one of the most talented artists in the history of music ever. He was an angel, and he looked like an angel. Justice for Kurt, because this angel doesn't rest in peace. If you don't put in prison or you send to trial his killers, he deserves justice. Angel Kurt. David Portnow is mentioned in the page from Cobain's journal. In a drunken interview on the Kurt and Courtney documentary, El Duce claimed he had been offered $50,000 to kill Cobain back in 1993, but had turned it down. Bizarrely, El Duce died 2 days after filming the interview, after being hit by a train in Riverside, California, in April 1997, with some speculating he may have been killed for revealing what he knew about Kurt Cobain's death. And Portnow, however, in the beginning, he thought maybe he was drunk, he had an accident. Now studying the case, look at what he says. What he says. spoken to a bunch of people about his death, and they feel like it was just an accident, that he was hit by a train. Nobody killed him, he said. But then, other people believe differently, but those I've talked to were very close to El Duce, and they believe it was just a coincidence. These were the statements of El Duce's fans in 1997. But now, Portnow changed his mind, and read what he stated in 2019 at the Sun United Kingdom. Portnow founded his current label Pig Records in 2007 believes that El Duce never actually carried out the crime. But he does believe that whoever wanted Cobain dead paid another hitman to do the job. He says he has studied the case and that evidence suggests that the death of the grunge legend wasn't a suicide, but was a murder staged to look like a suicide. And then read. According to two different coroner's reports that I saw, Kurt was passed out before the bullet went through his head, he said. I don't believe El Duce killed Kurt. I believe it was somebody else. But I do believe El Duce was paid to kill him. And yes, absolutely, I think the police should reopen the case. And this was the exclusive interview given by Dave Portnow to the Sun. So, really, he did this interview urging the American police to do finally its job, because of course 30 years ago there have been cover up, but now police has also new people, new investigators, and people who cover up at that time. They retired, like the Sergeant Cameron and many others. So I'm shooting this documentary just in the days in which Kurt Cobain had been killed, brutally murdered, exactly 30 years ago. It's time to give Kurt Cobain the justice he has been waiting for 30 years. I'm completely sure I show you the concrete proofs. Now, I hope that the police finally does its job. Then I want to remind you that I don't accuse anybody, because are the concrete proofs to accuse these people. The proofs. And I don't judge anybody, because if the police does its job, then these people will go to trial. So it will be a jury and a judge to, of course, to judge these people, not me. But stop. It's the time after exactly 30 years to give the justice to Kurt Cobain.